Hello, this is Giselle Gamby, business and life coach and proud host of the Intuitive Pool podcast. We're now pivoting to season 4 with an invitation to raise the stakes. I know I was made to remind people to raise the stakes, to seize, to claim, and execute the vision that you've intuitively seen, and to never accept the crumbs. What would it mean if you raised the stakes in your own life? What would you say yes to? And what would you say an undeniable no to? Be inspired, be agitated, be activated, and most of all, hold this truth, that when you raise the stakes, the quantum field will show you dreams you didn't even know you had. Hello, Intuitive Pool community. It's been 10 days since I released the last episode, and there has been so much that has happened in those last 10 days. First of all, I received through meditation a really powerful message. It's a message that has been continually with me. It's a message that has proven to be true. And it's a message that is directing this podcast, which I am now releasing, opening up to season 4 of the Intuitive Pool podcast. And I am dedicating season 4 to this theme. And the theme is to raise the stakes. To raise the stakes. I'm actually recording 4 episodes today, and I would encourage you to listen to these 4 episodes, perhaps within a week of each other, because there is an unfolding that speaks to the theme of raising the stakes in your own life. Now, the first episode, which is this one, is actually a recording of a group call that I've had permission to share with you. I won't be sharing or including in this episode what people then went and personally shared on that group call. But what I have been given permission to do, and is the reason why I want to share it with you, is that I invited Natalie Simes, who has just completed the first year of Sacred Leaders. I've been coaching with her for many years now. She's an incredible woman. You've actually heard her on this podcast before. I invited Natalie to come and facilitate a session for the new group of Sacred Leaders. Now, I just want to say this. Whilst we started back in May, this new group of Sacred Leaders, people can join this program whenever they feel pulled to. But it is a particular type of person that is right for sacred leadership. And that is that they have a good level, I should say, of emotional, professional, and spiritual maturity. They're not at the beginning of their journey. So Natalie came to facilitate a session with this second group of sacred leaders, and it was profound. It was so profound that we had a follow-up call where everyone shared what they'd received, and Natalie came again and received her sacred leadership even more deeply by seeing the impact that she had on these beautiful people. So that's the first episode, which I'll be sharing with you in a moment. The second episode is a very precious one because it was activated by a woman who I had a session with yesterday, who I have had the privilege of coaching, who was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer 3 months ago, and yesterday received her PET scan results showing that she has had complete resolution with her cancer. Now, the experience that I had with her yesterday, and then a subsequent experience that I had straight after, as I went to a light language sound healing session, it really activated me, and I felt very emotional. And so I presenced the emotion this morning, and I wrote out some pieces in my own notes to self. And so I'm going to be sharing that with you, and also the reason that we can see is the cause of her total resolution, radical remission. I'll also be sharing that. And then the third episode is actually a meditation that was created only on Monday this week, following an amazing weekend that I had with some very special people and a very powerful breathwork session that I had. I think I said 4 episodes before. There are not 4 episodes, there are 3 episodes. So let's start with the first episode. So Natalie Simes came to the Sacred Leaders program, and she asked the question, what was I made for? Billie Eilish's song, What Was I Made For, has been working her and impacting her. And so she followed the intuitive pull, and she brought this question to the Sacred Leaders. After the session that we had with the Sacred Leaders, I then went and played on repeat the instrumental version of What Was I Made For? And I received, based on the theme of raising the stakes, I received the answer to that, which I'll share after Natalie's teachings. Enjoy Nat's teaching, be activated, be curious about your own answer, and when you do receive what were you made for, please share with me. Let's go. I want to let anybody else who comes in. First of all, I want to welcome Misha into Sacred Leaders. It was such a joy when I went to see Misha a few weeks ago, and I sat down for my reflexology on me. And the first thing you said was, I want to coach with you. And it was such a delight. So welcome. It's actually an honor to have you here.
You warm my heart always.
And I'd like to welcome Natalie Simes, who's one of my most favourite people in the world. I've known Nat, when did we meet? 2015,
the June long weekend. Yeah.
Oh, that's right, the June long weekend, that's right. I still remember that phone call. I still remember where I was sitting. Nat and I have coached on and off over the years since 2015, just completed the year-long Sacred Leaders program. Is one of the most generous people I know in her leadership. Her sacred leadership has been, or began, in her home, in how she has held her family and her extended family, and you'll know more about that because Nat will share. Nat has been the reason for some pretty precious miracles that have happened in her family. Game-changing, life-changing miracles for members of her family, and has this way of seeing things that flips things often. And when Nat shares to me in her humble way, I've been thinking about this, or I've done some writing about that, and then shares it with me, I always learn something. And what I learn is one of those game-changing type of shifts in perception. So I wanted to bring Natalie on to this cohort, and I know we caught up yesterday, and it's very special what's going to happen today. So over to you, Nat.
Yeah, thanks, Giselle. Thank you so much for having me. It's a real honour to be with everyone today, and I'm really excited for where this next 12 months will take you. Jackie and I have just finished our 12 months, and would be the most incredible program that I've ever done, and one of the most incredible experiences. And just the deep connection with people and with myself has just been life-changing for me. So yeah, really happy to be with you here today. So I know Carol. I love Carol. And I know Jackie, of course. So they know bits and pieces of my story, but I'll just give an overview, and then I'm going to read a piece of writing that I did about 6 months ago. So my background is I was a lawyer for about 13 years. It never quite sat right for me, but it made me very logical, made me think everything through, determine outcomes, and very controlled and disconnected from my feeling body. And more recently, I've worked for our family business. So we own a bus and coach company in Lismore. And the last 5 years, I've become intimately connected with illness through what members of my family have been through. So my husband's brother passed away from motor neurone disease 4 years ago. I'm already emotional. And then just after Anthony's funeral, my dad was diagnosed with Huntington's disease. So a similar illness to motor neuron, but more slow moving. And he's in the final stages of that at the moment. So part of my sacred leadership and what has been uncovered in this last 12 months has been, whilst I've been able to really hold the greater purpose of these illnesses within my family, in that quest for meaning, I've denied my feeling. And that's where I've gone these last 6 months. And I'm in it. So I'm not through it right now, but I'm definitely in the feeling part of what's been happening with my family. So I'm going to read you a piece that I wrote about 6 months ago. So it was a chapter I wrote for a book that I contributed to called Unity. And then I'll just go through a bit of the process that I've been through since writing that, in line with having done sacred leadership. But I think Giselle's going to first play a song, because the theme for today and what's really been working me is the theme song from Barbie, of all things. I've listened to this maybe 50 times in the last couple of weeks, and it's the theme of our call today, which is, what was I made for? And I want you to connect into that question, but underlying that is being connected to the whole of us, which is not just our soul and our humanity, but our feeling experience in this lifetime. So I want you to really listen to the words of the song, and then I'll read my piece from Unity, and then we'll go from there.
So I'm just going to put the link in to that song in this episode, because for copyright reasons, of course, I cannot play it here on the podcast.
I love that question so much, and it's just uncovered so much in me this last couple of weeks. So I'm going to share my piece. It's called Awake. I'll preface it by saying that my old identity was keeping my shit together. I'm having a lot of trouble keeping my shit together lately. So feel free to cry with me if you need to. But I'll try and get through this as best I can. But I really want this to be a deeply feeling experience for everyone on the call, not just with my experience, but with what it might identify within you as well. That's a little bit long, but then I'll discuss after. Okay, awake. We've all said it. I know I have many times. Someone we know dies or is diagnosed with a terminal illness. Maybe not someone close, but close enough to trigger that feeling inside that reminds us that life is short. We make a promise to let go of what doesn't matter, to appreciate that life is for living. And that feeling can linger, and we might act on the call, but eventually we forget. We slip with ease back into everyday life, the comfort of routine and structure. It feels safe. But are we truly alive? How close do we need to be to death or illness before we wake up? A parent, a spouse, a child? Is death truly needed to catalyse life? Is illness and pain the necessary contrast to feel joy and freedom? Is our greatest vulnerability death, or is it choosing to live now in the face of death? At some point, we are all faced with a death or an experience of illness of someone we deeply love. In my recent experience, it's been death following a traumatic illness. There is a kaleidoscope of emotions as you ride the wave of an illness that both rips you apart and puts you back together repeatedly until you think you can't take it anymore. You become acutely aware of the identities you've crafted, and the roles you have so carefully played can crumble. The strong one, the martyr, the rock. You're exposed. Do you double down on the identities or surrender to the truth of who you are? You so often see fractures within a family when faced with an illness that will result in death. Each member of the family dealing in ways only they know how, often a collection of broken hearts wanting to come together, but only knowing how to stand apart. A craving to truly feel in a world that encourages us to bury our emotions. But death can be a journey back to love. In fact, I know it can be a journey to love, but with the love comes the pain, and we need to welcome in both to experience freedom. Natalie Simes, son, brother, uncle, friend, my brother-in-law, and gone too soon from this world. Anthony died in 2020 after an 18-month battle with motor neuron disease. I would normally shy away from the term battle, but a battle it was. That was until it wasn't. Anthony is someone who spent his life running away from who he truly was. He believed he was worthless, so he proved his worth by working himself into the ground. He developed an illness that literally stopped him in his tracks, and he could no longer run away. He had to face himself in every way, a heartbreaking, painful, yet exquisitely beautiful journey, and not just a journey for him, a journey for our entire family. Macy and I have just raced in to drop Anthony his morning coffee. A quick hello, how'd you sleep? A reassuring smile from him that tells me not to worry, that I can report back to everyone that all is well in our now very uncertain world. A ritual of safe conversational questions that allows us all not to feel too deeply, to protect our hearts from facing the reality of what is speeding towards us, life without him. Anthony was our mirror, and we had to face ourselves too. He didn't have time for us to ask the safe questions. In the stillness, the silence, and the relentlessness of the disease, he discovered who he was. Through his illness, there was a deathing of his identities, a deathing of the stories he told himself about who he needed to be in this world in order to feel love. He surrendered fully, not an easy choice for someone faced with a debilitating, distressing illness. He chose to shine in the face of death. He revealed his heart, the bravest act of courage from a man who believed he was invisible. He showed us that the true meaningful experiences in life are not what we expect. It's the love and connection felt in times of profound sadness, the shared jokes between brothers, the reassuring hand of a mother, and the realization that truly being with someone in your full presence is what matters most. He was like a tidal wave through our family, stripping us all bare. It's been 10 nights thinking he won't be here when we wake. She slept on a small makeshift bed, barely leaving his side. I take her hand in mine. It's warm, comforting, a stark contrast to the shell of Anthony lying before me. I can see his heart pounding in his chest, his once strong, fit body demanding to live just a little longer. But he's leaving us. I can feel him slipping away. Our room often full of warmth and family, now still and quiet, but there is so much love here. Anne's steady, gleaming eyes are locked on her firstborn child. She's taking in his every breath, and she won't leave him. I leap to wrap my arms around my own children, never wanting to let them go after witnessing her look at him with such heartbreaking tenderness. She stays, there for his first breath, and with him for his last. Love overflows. Anthony gave us more than he will ever know, the gift of unconditional love and connection beyond what we previously experienced as a family, and a remembering to choose what really matters. He died knowing that he was loved, not for what he did or for what he could contribute, but for who he was. A gentle, kind, magnificent man who greatly impacted our family and everyone around him. He shifted our perception of illness from one of only deep suffering to that of greater purpose. However, those last few weeks of his life were nothing short of horrific for Anthony and for all of us who loved and cared for him. Yes, he was free, but the reality of his final weeks deeply affected us all. He was our mirror and we were now free. How could we allow ourselves to be free in the face of his suffering, in the face of Anne's suffering, having lost her son? The love was overflowing, but so was the pain. Could we honour the greater purpose of freedom? We wanted to remain free, but our resolve was tested too soon. Before we could acknowledge and truly feel our pain, my dad was diagnosed with Huntington's disease not a week after Anthony's death. It was a terrifying reality, having just witnessed Anthony die from a similar illness. The pain was too much for us all. We buried our grief, we denied our pain. We had experienced freedom through Anthony, but the weight of our grief was too much and we were once again chained. The pain of Anthony's final weeks, combined with Dad's diagnosis and what that meant for my family, was too much to take, and freedom was not fully realised. I chose to be safe, to bury my feelings, to become the rock I needed to be to survive. I chose to honour my identity, deny my freedom. We bury grief in the pockets of our soul that we don't allow ourselves to reach for, zipped shut, padlocked, in the hope that we can close it off for eternity. The thing about grief, though, it expands when locked away and explodes from those pockets when we least expect it. We need to wear our grief like a pocket square, slightly exposed, there when we need it, and a reminder that tears are a symbol of deep love, of connection, and of our beautifully vulnerable humanness. My dad's journey is not an easy one, for him, for my mum, for our whole family. It's often easier to hide our pain, to be stoic, to look for the positives in what is a tragic situation. But it's time for a softening, for us all to be vulnerable and to show our pain, to feel our pain, to fall apart, to acknowledge our grief. My identity tells me to remain strong, to be the rock, to try and fix an unfixable situation. But like Anthony, I can't fix this. The only thing I can do is show Dad how loved he is before he goes, to not hold back on my feelings, no matter how uncomfortable they make me. It's ironic, or maybe not, that the end stages of Dad's illness is complete abandon and pulling back. He wants us to all feel his love. In fact, he can't help but let it overflow. His tears are from laughter and happiness. His bliss is the sight of his family, just the sight of us. No sense of obligation, pure love and adoration for everyone before him. We can feel sadness for who he used to be and be grateful for the person before us who just wants to love us. What a lesson. The focus can be on the illness, or the focus can be on who we can now be in the face of such heartbreak. Our choice, no removal of the pain, just a deepening of the love. When you are living the reality that is a family member with a traumatic illness, you can deny yourself permission to celebrate. You often live in a suffocating energy, and I have no doubt it perpetuates the illness and the suffering of the entire family. The antidote is, of course, joy. It's not difficult to find moments of joy. It is difficult to allow yourself to truly feel those moments of joy. It's time to cut through the suffering, not because it's not there, but because it's time to celebrate everything. It's time to hold illness in a different energy. How do we truly wake up when faced with a wake-up call? What will it take to surrender? How do we take off the cloak of our identity and live freely? To feel the love, we have to feel the pain, and then there will be freedom. Grief and pain might just be the fastest path to love, to freedom. Just like failure is integral to success, pain is integral to love. The intensity of the pain, if you allow it, will sharpen your ability to truly show and feel love. Grieving does not mean you're a victim of your circumstances. It's a reminder that you can love deeply. If the pain is buried, there is uncertainty and fear. Feel it. There you go. There is a sadness here, but vulnerability is holding you. Be vulnerable. My carefully curated identity tells me to turn away from vulnerability, but she's an old friend and my instincts are telling me to lean in and listen. Her visits impart wisdom, always an offering that lingers and asks for trust. My identity will often bury these offerings, and when vulnerability knocks again, there is a remembering and a comfort. These visits show me that I should leave the door open. When she came the first time, she intended to stay. Vulnerability is the diamond of houseguests and will reveal herself in different ways if you sit with her in the light. It's not just about seeing the greater purpose of illness. It's about allowing the grief and the pain and the deep love. It's about holding it all. Feeling the intensity of the pain allows the intensity of love needed for true healing, even when that healing isn't recovery. be vulnerable now, be open now, feel it all, even when it breaks your heart. I'll just finish it there. So I wrote that piece 6 months ago, and I realised that I wasn't feeling it all. I could acknowledge the greater purpose of the illness, and then I could sit in my humanity and feel numb because I wasn't feeling any of it. And I needed to realise it was for a greater purpose, to accept that it had happened and that it was happening to our family. But focusing only on the greater lesson for the soul just gave me a permission to disconnect from myself, from my whole self. So what was I made for? That question for me is to be a deeply feeling person that moves all the way through the feeling, so it's not stuck in my body manifesting into illness or a tangible outcome that I'm not wanting for myself or my family or my kids. I think it's about acknowledging those greater insights that we have as a soul body, but then allowing the space to feel so that we can have a deep human experience. And it's tough. That's really tough for me to allow myself to feel and let go, and not just in the sadness and the tears, in the happiness as well, like actually allowing real joy into my life when there's so much suffering within my family. But I think as well, I've had this realization lately that I've shared it with you, that I don't believe that I'm this body with a soul. I believe that I'm an evolving soul that has chosen me right now in this body, in this life, in this time. And I need to fully shift and move through the lessons and feel to heal it, so that my soul stays in this body for as long as possible. Because I think our soul knows our strength, it knows the heights that we can soar to and the depths that we can go to. And we just need to say yes to that, even when it's difficult and impossible. So I would say, since I wrote that piece, I'm in it. I'm not fully through the feeling of it. And maybe that's part of it, is just over and over again going through the feeling of what's happening in that moment. And right now it's the sadness of my dad dying. Yeah. Uh, yeah, so I think the whole of me now would be, like, I feel like the feeling is the glue that holds my soul and my humanity together. And I want to feel it all, even when I'm falling apart. And I want that for everyone here too. I want you to feel connected to the whole of yourself. Did you want to add anything, Giselle, before we play?
Just how remarkable you are. And how proud I am, actually, that you guys get to experience somebody that's been through year-long sacred leadership program. And this is where Nat has landed. I think it's an experience of overflow being in your presence, Nat, because not only are we including me in the receiving of your sacred leadership, but we're also able to see what happens when somebody absolutely commits to the process of being and meeting their sacred leadership. As I said, so generous. So I will play any instructions, actually, before I play.
So we're just going to play a musical version of the song we listened to at the start. And I want you to maybe feel into what part of yourself you're not feeling connected to when we talk about our humanity, our feeling, our soul, but with that bigger question of, what was I made for?
Thanks, Nat. Okay, here we go. Once again, I can't play that song, but I will put a link to the instrumental version of What Was I Made For here, not only in the show notes, but also in the video of this podcast episode. I really hope you make the most of this and give yourself this time. Thank you.
Does anyone feel to share first?
I will.
Michelle.
That was more apt than you could guess. What was I made for? Now I'm not going to get emotional, but that's exactly where I'm at now. Giselle knows in a few weeks I turn 80. And it's a big thing in life when you realize that you've lived most of your life. What's to come? But for me, what's to come is going to be the best. I've made up my mind that, are you listening upstairs? I've got another 20 years to go. But those 20 years are going to be years of living, always being in the moment. Other thing is sharing the experience, the knowledge, and everything I've gained in the last 30 years of my spiritual journey.
To keep everybody's sharing sacred, I have not included their contribution or their answer to that question, what was I made for, in this podcast episode, other than beautiful Misha's request to live another 20 years. She inspires me greatly. So let's continue with this episode. So I truly hope that Natalie had the same profound effect that she had on the Sacred Leaders Group and on me. I wish that she had that same profound effect on you. And as I said, when you receive your message, your answer, I should say, please share with me. So now I'm going to share mine with you. And as I share it, I actually want to ask you to receive it as a prayer. Receive my words as a prayer for you. What was I made for? I was made to raise the stakes. To raise the stakes of who we allow ourselves to be. To raise the stakes of the version of reality we give ourselves permission to live. To raise the stakes on what we deserve to receive and to give. To raise the stakes on following our shifts in perception and our shifts in identity all the way through. I was made to raise the stakes on how happy we can be and how fulfilled we can feel when we live a life of authenticity, purpose, and meaning. I was made to easily see someone's light and to raise the stakes of that light being shared in the world as bright and as generous as that light is. I was made to bring people together in community and to raise the stakes of the joy and the creative power that is available by being in a divine ecosystem. I was made to show people that the intuitive mind is not only a gift, but a natural ability, and to raise the stakes on what is possible by following the intuitive pull all the way through and consistently. I was made to show people that miracles are real, and to raise the stakes that miracles can happen in all areas of our lives, regardless of the subject matter. I was made to remind people that love always has our backs, and to raise the stakes by surrendering into grace and the unimaginably good found in love's plans. I was made to show people that living life through a veil of forgetfulness is a necessary part of the soul unfurling into its human experience, and to raise the stakes on how much we allow ourselves to remember. I was made to provide comfort by sharing that the area of our humanity that we've cursed and been most challenged by is where our purpose lives, and to raise the stakes on how lovingly impactful and powerful we can be by seeing it this way. I was made to raise the stakes, to seize, to claim, and to execute the vision that we have been intuitively shown, and never to accept the crumbs. I was made to invite people into being unapologetically and authentically successful, because when we raise the stakes for ourselves, we raise them for all. And ultimately, I was made to raise my own stakes firstly, and to then allow the knowing and wisdom that has emerged through this process to create many ripples of impact. Thank you for joining me. Ciao. Hey guys, if you love this podcast, I have 2 requests. Number 1, sign up to the newsletter, which you can find in the show notes. Sharing is one of my superpowers, and there is only so much that I can share through the medium of podcasting. And I have very big plans this year to be radically generous to you. So sign up to that newsletter where you'll be able to receive a whole lot more that I trust will be super valuable to you. And number 2, I'm a massive referrer of the people I love to the people I love. Please share this episode or podcast with the people you love, and let's create some more breathtaking ripples of impact.